I'm going to tweet things about people in Congress that are totally inappropriate, and I'm going to bully them.
Oh, wait, also, I'm going to attack the most important person in Congress, the most powerful person, in Mitch McConnell.
Right.
Good luck with that.
That was President Trump unveiling his push for tax reform last week. Joining us now, senior finance correspondent at Business Insider, Lynette Lopez. Also with us, best-selling author Brad Thor. He's out with his new thriller, Use of Force. He's also been selected for this year's Politico 50 list, one of the key thinkers who are reshaping American politics and policy. Good to have you both on board.
Great to have you here. Brad, you actually are saying that this fall will magnify Donald Trump's weaknesses. Explain.
Absolutely. Listen, I think you and Mika have had two things right from the beginning. I think, Joe, you said in the beginning that this stuff Trump was going to exhaust the nation. There's no way we could keep going with an outrage every day.
Unsustainable.
Right. And Mika repeatedly questioned, and I think, well, his personality and what flaws are there outside his character potentially up here. We heard people on the show last week talk about his narcissism, and I think that's a big issue here. I think as we get into the fall, things are going to get more difficult. And I think as the stress ratchets up on the president, I think he's going to defer to his lesser angels. So I think we're going to see as we get into the fall, North Korea is going to become an even bigger problem because they're going into winter. They're going to need fuel. They're going to need food. And I think the potential for a budget showdown is going to be a big problem for this president. And he's the only person who can't advance his own agenda because he keeps attacking the people he needs most to get things done.
And one of the things, Lynette, he wants to pass is tax reform. He's talking about that right now.
This is incredibly important because this highlights another problem that Trump is going to run into, and that is the difference between his rhetoric and what he says to his base and what is actually in the stuff that comes out of his White House. I mean, he has these two Goldman guys writing the tax reform plan, which is really just a massive cut. And they're part of this gang of six. They're representing the White House. What they have in there is a lot of stuff that's great for them and great for their people. And, you know, a lot of economic research shows that when you give corporations a tax cut, that doesn't necessarily trickle down to workers. They don't necessarily hire. In fact, the lowest paying corporate tax payers, they actually cut jobs. Look at ExxonMobil, actually. Rex Tillerson paid, 13% in tax, much lower than the 35% they're trying to cut. And he had a massive, massive layoff, a third of his workforce during his tenure. I mean, this is not about, labor. This is not about the worker. This is not about base. This is about giving a tax cut to corporations and also the rich.
So, Katty Kay, politics, I mean, economics aside, whether the program would work or not, this is what Donald Trump promised was he was going to stand up to Goldman Sachs. I saw it in the last commercial that he was going to stand up to the powers that be. He was going to actually deliver help and relief to working class Americans who had been shut out of a rigged system. And yet, Lynette's right. All of his policies come right out of the Goldman Sachs playbook.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us have seen a credible, reputable economic analysis of this tax plan that doesn't show that it helps the wealthiest in the country disproportionately more than it helps either the middle class.
The rich get richer, the poor get poor, and what about health care? Even health care.
Even health care, which is why even the Republican Party could not sign on to that health care plan because it put too many poorer Americans, middle-class Americans, at a disadvantage. And you talked earlier in the program, Joe, about scams from the president. I think one of the biggest scams that President Trump perpetuated during the course of his campaign was that government was easy and that he was going to get it done where other people have not been able to.
But he actually believed it was easy.
Well, people are leaving the State Department.
He thought everybody was stupid. And I remember we would say on the program, we'd go, I'm going to stand up to Paul Ryan and shut him down. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to do that.
Well,
the reason this stuff hasn't been done, it's really
hard.
Difficult.
Well, in the immortal words
whether it's North Korea or the Middle East or healthcare or tax reform, there's a reason we haven't reformed the American tax code since Reagan. It's not easy to do.
And you can't run it like a family grocery store.
John Meacham, in the immortal words of George W. Bush in the first 2004 debate, it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
I have more time. Can I have more time? It's hard.
Okay.
And it is hard.
And look,
Well,
we're
we have
running out
not
of
misunderestimated Trump.
Yeah.
We're running out of time here, you know. We're seeing a massive gap between the rich and the poor, and the middle class is what drives the U.S. economy, okay?
Yep.
And if we don't get a growing middle class in this country, we're going to run out of gas. And, you know, the entire world is starting to slow down a little bit. You know, the Federal Reserve is starting to make money less easy for Americans. We're coming into a transitional period for the economy when we really need strong leadership out of White
And we've
House.
got a
We're
ton
not
of money
getting
that's
it.
sitting offshore. This should
Sure.
be an easy bipartisan
Right.
thing to
Let's do
repatriate that money. Let's give them a really low tax rate. Let's shore up Social Security with some of that money. We're going to look at a big bill coming out of Hurricane Harvey. So there's some things the president could do, and he could work with Chuck Schumer and work across the aisle. But if they don't get their acts together, I
need
agree
it
with
soon.
you. And it's going to hurt Trump the most, because if he gets to the end of the year with no legislative accomplishments, Gorsuch is not enough to count as a point on the board.
John Meacham?
You live in a, remind me where you live?
Down the street from you in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville Cats.
What are you hearing from people who voted for Trump at this point?
Die-hard Trumpers.
So I'm getting a lot of what Joe's getting from people in Pensacola, friends that were saying, Joe, you're being too hard on him, give him a chance. We're at 8 months now. The honeymoon period is over. And I'm hearing from friends of mine in Nashville that voted for him not because they didn't like Hillary, but because they really believed in what he could do for the nation. They're frustrated. They want him to pivot, but he's 71. He's not going to pivot. He's not going to look at everything we saw to Emory last week in Pittsburgh, that startling focus group. Granted, those were soft Trump supporters who voted against Hillary, but you're seeing that in the base now, where they want him to stop tweeting, act presidential, stop attacking the media, stop making it about him. He is the most selfish president I have ever seen in my lifetime.
And by the way, Wall
One
Street's
way of
over it
putting
too.
it.
Yeah.
Wall Street is totally over it. They don't think tax reform is coming. Worried about this president and if he's effectual at all. And you can see it in the research that they put out to their clients every day. They don't think his agenda is going to pass. Everything is getting pushed farther and farther into 2018. And when I, a New Yorker, a Wall Street person, go to Washington,
Yeah.
I have this reaction like, what are you guys doing down here? You
Right.
know?
Definitely a case of presidential dysfunction. Business Insider's Lynette Lopez, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Brad
much.
Moore, thank you as well.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks.
We'll be looking